Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Saturday. We are thrilled to have you. My name is Indra Mungal, and I work at the Asian Art Museum in the Education Department. And on behalf of the Asian Art Museum, I would like to welcome you to today's exciting virtual program. I wanted to let you know the museum is open and we invite you to join us. Please see our website to learn about our fantastic current exhibitions. The Asian Art Museum also wants to acknowledge that our museum is located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. In addition, the Asian Art Museum is committed to doing continuous work on acknowledging the Ramaytush Ohlone community that still exists in our community. So we've been doing programming in conjunction with the community. Also, the Asian Art Museum condemns racism, hate, and xenophobia in all its forms. We call for an end to anti-Black and anti-Asian violence and commit ourselves as partners and allies in fighting for social justice. We pledge to uplift the voices and experiences of marginalized communities and to confront prejudice and injustice through the power of art and education. There is still much more work to be done, and we will continue to make diversity, equity, access, and inclusion institutional priorities as we strive to make the museum truly a place for all. I am pleased to welcome Kearny Street Workshop participants today. Kearny Street Workshop is the longest standing multidisciplinary Asian Pacific American arts organization. For the past 5 years, the Asian Art Museum has been proud to support Kearny Street's Interdisciplinary Writers Lab, a 3-month multi-genre masterclass for local BIPOC writers. In this unique program, emerging writers explore and develop their writing skills and styles across multiple genres. I am so excited about this. I'm moved every year by hearing the work by the writers. So now I'd like to turn this over to author and performer Jason Bayani, Kearny Street's executive director. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, how's everyone doing? I'm actually the artistic director of Kearny Street Workshop. And we're so happy to be able to put this on today to see the completion of yet another Interdisciplinary Writers Lab. We've been doing this program since the early 2000s, and we've been partnered with the Asian Art Museum for the last 5 years. And it's been, such an awesome partnership. And it's so great to be a part of this. It's so great to be able to offer, a program like this that centers BIPOC writer voices and is taught by BIPOC writers. So it's really great to be able to do this each year and to see them kind of develop and build a community together. So it's really proud to see this all. I'm really proud of the cohort who we're going to be reading today. So we had some amazing instructors this year, and some of them are in the house. And I want to give them a chance to say a few words. The first instructor I want to introduce is Debbie S. Lascar. Debbie, would you like to say a few words?
I most certainly would. It's so great to see everybody again. I had such a pleasure this summer of getting these amazing writers for a very short amount of time on Saturday afternoons, and they produced, I would say, like enough for like 60 chapbooks and anthologies in such a short amount of time. I just want you to know that I'm so proud of you, and I was just blown away by the level of work that you did and your willingness and your enthusiasm and your commitment. And I can't wait to see you out in the big bad world and kicking ass and taking names. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It was so great to have you as part of IWL this year. I also have Anthony Cody in the house who taught the poetry section. So yeah, what's up, Anthony?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's good to see everyone's faces. It was an honor just to sit and virtually hold space with each and every one of you. It feels like it was weeks ago, not months ago, because all of your voices and your stories and your writing that I'm still sitting with and holding close to me has really been the highlight of a really difficult summer, of a really difficult, I don't know what month it is, May 2020 or March 2020 to whatever it is now. And so I'm really honored to hear each of you today, but also I'm super excited to hear those voices continue to amplify and echo out into the world, because when I hear your voices and I see your writing, I'm reminded of why I first started writing and why I think it's continually important for us to have these moments, have these spaces to continue to speak out and push back and push against and reveal all the things that every day are being told to us that should be quieted, but they should be louder and louder and louder. So I just want to send you all love, and I'm excited for today.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Yeah, that you know, it's always amazing. Every year we have such really dope instructors teaching this program, and I'm always excited to have every single one of them come through. I also want to give a shout out to Trinidad Escobar, who taught comics for the first time this year at IWL. So you know, give a shout out to Trinidad. Trinidad is awesome as well. And also want to give a shout out to some there. We do have some past IWL. We do have a past IWL fellow in the audience right now. Just want to give a shout out to K Ming Chang, the award-winning author of Bestiary, which is a dope book. You should check that out. And yeah, so let's get started with this reading, right? And also, if you want to be a part of IWL next year, or you know someone who might be interested in this program, we will start accepting applications at the probably next February or March. So, you know, go to our website, sign up for our mailing list, check out all the other events and stuff we have. You know, we got a podcast, we got like Aperture coming up, which is our yearly festival, a lot of things going on. So check us out at kearnystreet.org. All right, let's kick off this reading. Okay. Let me all right, our first reader is going to be Angel Trazzo. Angel Trazzo is a visual artist and PhD student in cultural studies at UC Davis. She received her MA in Asian American Studies from UCLA in 2020. She's also the author and illustrator of the children's book, We Are Inspiring, the stories of 32 inspirational Asian American women. Give it up for Angel.
Thank you so much, Jason. That was such a hyped intro. So I'll be reading two short poems, and I'm going to start with one called How to Make Empanadas. So, how to make empanadas. Ingredients: 1 Ilocana grandma, 1 grandpa from Manila, 333 plus years of Spanish colonization, 48 plus years of American colonization, 1 dad who defiantly learned how to cook from his mom, 2 Filipina American daughters. Directions. Number 1, beat the kids hard enough that they learn their place, but not so much that they stay there. 2, prep vacation time for a rare weekday afternoon together. Pick up the kids from public school in the blue Toyota pickup truck you sold for the red Dodge Caravan that took 10 years to pay off and 7 to break down. 3. Knead the dough like you need religion. Shape into pale pastry circles by pressing dough into the circumference of a small glass, the same cup that turned pieces of white Wonder Bread into round bodies of Christ for practice First Communions. 4. Fill the doughy insides with dialogue. You can eat these, you told us as you picked up a small flower from the sidewalk. Taste the sourness of the thin-stemmed, yellow flowered weeds. Taste the bitterness of aunts who scolded us for not knowing Tagalog. We picked bitter melon bits out of the pancit. We stayed silent as the head of fried lechon at holiday parties. Remember when you told us that children are meant to be seen, not heard? We talk, 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 as if we all forgot. Food apologizes. Number 5, press small creases into dough to close the pastry edges, as small as the apartments on our dead-end street where parents work dead-end jobs to make ends meet. We learned something new about your life before us. You tell us that your first non-military job in America was at a bakery. Number 6, bake until brown. Curse the sun for the fact that our skin looks like yours instead of mom's. 7, served with words left unsaid. When you told me that 7 was the age of reason, none of this made sense. Did Lola ever tell you, ay ayatan ka? Lolo silenced words he did not understand. And the second poem is called Mitochondria. Mitochondria. Inside me, mitochondria recycle themselves promptly when they are damaged. They know exactly what it means to be damaged, dysregulated, sick, and undergo mitophagy, self-induced cell death. In the lab at 2 a.m., I hunch over the microscope. In the sterile room, I worry I contaminate with my failed experiment, my mental illness. My cells keep dying. In the petri dish, mouse embryonic fibroblasts live suspended in a glucose sea full of little islands, miniature Mindanaos made of shimmering silver bolos, ready to defeat invaders. In college, I studied cancer biology because I noticed my mom go bald overnight, but she still went to work while going through chemo. And if her body could do that, the least I could do was go to class. Thank you. And now I'm going to introduce our next artist. So Dorothy R. Santos is a queer, gender non-conforming Filipinx American writer, artist, and educator. She is a PhD candidate in film and digital media at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Her creative writing explores kinship, lineages, and sensual knowledge, queer love, and desire. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Angel. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with everyone. I will read 2 poems. The first is called Marigold. Walking along 8th Avenue in Oakland with kin on a sunny afternoon, they pointed to the yarrow growing in rounded bulbous bunches. They mentioned its use in boundary work, wounds and cuts. Have you ever wished you were injured or harmed just so you could feel something? How about the feeling of being cut to prove you're composed of blood? Upon listening to its medicinal purposes, at that very moment, I felt a desire to cut myself open, to see if I could dam the fever of emotions I felt when you went away. You were the color of marigold when you transitioned into a dimension I've only dreamed about. Your skin was the color of yarrow. You became my boundary. What was inside of you that anguished you so? You're quiet. You tattled on me when I was a stubborn child. Your incessant singing, I disliked. Now I crave the songs you sang, and I faintly hear the sound of your voice in Vernethi's area of my left hemisphere. I asked my mother about your secrets. I asked if you had any she might have learned from. I wonder if you caught her sharing them when she thought you weren't around. Then again, you passed them on to her as they slipped into the sequence of my genetic code for safekeeping. I knew you had secrets, or why else would I inquire? The deepest hurt and rage you could no longer hold on to. Your brutal, loving touch was felt when the leather of my mother's belt told me your secrets. They made their way into my bloodstream. On occasion, at the witching hour, orbs of light flit their way through the blinds, delivering messages in an indecipherable Morse code of muted light. Ooh, that was hard to get through, y'all. My second poem is called Lullaby. 1. Close your eyes, breathe deep, exhale. Proceed to astral project onto a sun-kissed part of the Pacific Ocean. 2. Watch the sun's rays shimmer across its surface. Feel the buoyancy and lightness of your body. 3. Breathe in deep. Repeat until all you hear is the breeze gently touching the water around you. 4. Wait until the moon appears overhead. 5. Watch the moon follow you as your body begins to float and levitate, not too far over the water. 6. Notice your body bathed and covered in a blanket of moonbeams. 7. Gaze into the stream of stars that gather underneath you and hold you steady. 8. Turn your body over and offer a gentle touch to the Pacific as your palm kisses the moonlit surface. Feel each drop turn into an archive of wishes. 9. Do not succumb to your trepidation. 10. Let the water and moonbeams tickle your skin. Keep your palms outstretched as the ocean attempts to envelop you in their waves. 11. Allow the moon's light to illuminate the veil, a portal for time travel between wakeful states and slumber. 12. Greet Delikamata as she appears with her 1,000 eyes, calming smile, and soothing touch. 13. Manopo, as her soft hand touches your forehead, and she inscribes a prayer of 1,000 years that seeps into the caverns of your bones and blood. Oh, wait, I got through that without crying, y'all. Thank you. I'm so excited to introduce the next artist. Hyrule Ma is a Taiwanese American writer born and raised in the Bay Area, and she's currently working on a novel. I'm so excited, Hyrule.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. I'm going to be reading a flash fiction piece called Procedure. The day I went under, no one could come with me. My wife dropped me off at the hospital 30 minutes early during her lunch break. My daughter was at school. I sat in the waiting room by myself, surrounded by other hunched, solitary figures, all of us alone together, unsure if we were closer to the end or the beginning. This will hurt just a little bit, the nurse said, slow and amoebic. I'd like to go home, I said. The operating table was hard and cool beneath my shoulder blades. They were opening me up. The air was brackish and thin. A needle lowered from the sunroof, all steel and limited warranty labels. It'll be gentle, then you can go home. Your wife is waiting for you. Something sharp plunged into my side. I was lying on my back on the wet earth. Black storm clouds swam above me like unfettered angels. The rain burned me beneath my disposable gown. It tasted like acid. I'm getting wet. I don't have an umbrella. It's high tide today, the surgeon's voice burbled from above water. Your wife is in the waiting room. A jellyfish stung the roof of my mouth. I gasped for breath. When I pulled the tentacles off my throat, they left slender purple stripes on my palms. My wife stood at the shore, her naked skin glowing in the warm light, the dust casting faint speckles on her flesh. It was quiet on this island. I made dinner, she said. I struggled out of the salt, dragging myself onto the sand. My ligaments were flopping, weak intersections of faithless organs and trial run drugs, a million sharp diamonds cut into my skin. When I pulled myself up, blood swimming down my thighs, my fingernails crusted with stippled sediment, spine carved into 1,000 secret crevices, she held my hand and led me to a fold-out table. Her grip was clean, cold, like all my sweet surgeons. A bottle of Taiwan beer rested next to a plate of marinated pig ear and a bowl of rice and minced pork. Go on, she said earnestly, young and beautiful again. Eat and drink. We were 20 once more. I waded through a typhoon to get to her apartment. As a storm pelted me from all sides, I marveled at how outrageously lucky I was to have landed a beauty like her, with a sense of humor that perfectly complemented my own. The rain smelled like rust and sewage, and it was up to my knees. When I arrived drenched and stinking of rotten laundry, she laughed, kissed me on the cheek, and then we spent all night boiling meat for hot pot. I forced the beer towards my lips. The liquid burned my nostrils. It was stale rubbing alcohol. The dismembered pig on my plate lifted itself up with a million tiny legs and stared at me with cold, dead eyes before wriggling off the porcelain and climbing into the desert. The glass shattered in the sand as my fingers gave away. I looked up frantically, but she was gone, an empty chair all that remained. I could still feel her warmth. She knew all along that I was drowning, but she couldn't bear to drown with me anymore. How could I blame her? I'll just die forever in the rooms she just left. I blinked again and the table was gone. Everything was white ocean. You'll be able to go home soon, said the nurse. I bowed my head and wept as the storm took me. Thank you. And next up, it is my pleasure to introduce Jashi Uruzhou, is a writer, poet, computer programmer, born and raised in LA and based in San Francisco. Right now, she's thinking about sustainably, serendipity, and surreality. She likes wandering around the internet and through her neighborhood, meeting and dancing with strangers and sharing language meals with friends. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Hyrule. That was so beautiful. So I'll be reading 3 poems today. The first one is called Triple F. In the chiseled irises of the founding fathers, I'll carve all the faces they looked past. As in, to unbecome a god, make a relative out of suffering, grow a family tree of those who give and those who receive, who take and those who lose. As in, to be human is to be a relative to suffering, as one who inflicts it or one who receives. For your wings to molt when you're too close to the sun, feathers somersaulting back to earth. The second poem is called Soft Metric Digits. Notice the knuckles, the crevices between our fingers, the sphered space held by our bold hands when cups overflow. Call your mother and ask, up to where must the water rise? How many knuckles does it take to feed myself without you? How much time do I need until a boiling point? When should I put out the flames? Immigrant mother metrics don't know stainless steel, but there's a world where they know there's enough. And then the third poem is, remembering yourself is to learn how to dream and desire. 1. The internet as ocean, an undulation of our bidded selves. I looked into your hurricaned eye and wondered if you saw me in the crowd through a mist of pixel, or maybe in the mirror between my reflection and I. 2. Take my spare half year. I found it crumpled in my jean jacket. In the now-term future, I prayed into the password box when I saw my old home in the grid of CAPTCHAs. 3. To toss seeds out the window is to remember how to forget until harvest. Strawberries bursting outside of themselves, pumpkins melting back into soil, recommuning with tree root networks, fed by a time before our exhalations. 4. You can tell a girl is part fish from the sheen of her hair in the sunshine. the kind that would slip out of your fingers when you tried to run your hand through. If you can manage to get close enough, the only thing you'd catch would be a waft of sea mist in her wake. Thank you so much. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Joy Ding. Joy is a writer, actor, musician, and multi-genre weirdo living in Philadelphia. She has earned a master's degree in creative writing from UC Davis. Yes, she would love to see a picture of your pet.
Hey everyone, so glad to be here. It's fun to see all of you again, and welcome to everyone else who came. Thank you. The cicadas are going to be here. Baptism. My mother started doing baptisms during COVID. She brought believers into our suburban backyard and pressed their heads into the water. She must have worn something grand each time, sleeves wide and flowing as the embrace of God. This would never happen, but I imagine myself walking up to the baptism pool. It's pink, inflatable, made to look like a flamingo. Ridiculous, staring, rakish, black and white eyes. An expression of uncontained enthusiasm in the beak. It is my imagining, after all. When I reach the rim, my mother pushes back the flamingo's head to let me in, and it snaps back. It is summer, morning, before the heat has come down from the trees. I am calm, I am collected, alight with the glory of the occasion. I will have fooled with my occasion all morning, my mother's eyes on my collar, my sash, my face, even as I dress alone. Maybe I put on makeup in the car, my eyes welling larger between black liner. I imagine laying back in the water, belly to the air, knees exposed in the tiny pool. My feet touch the bottom, which is knobby, textured like feathers. My ears fill with water, and I do not hear her as she speaks to the sky, announces my decision this momentous day, etc., 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 etc. She puts 5 gentle fingers under my neck. I know those fingers, admire the fingernails, like the ones in lotion commercials. I close my eyes, and the water takes me. I wait for our stories to come together in this moment, saved and saving, daughter and mother, her duty done as mother and mine to trust in her, also completed. But I am already bobbing to the surface. I am a coconut seed and waxy to the touch. No one can touch me. I am squirming up, moving hair out of my face with my hands, though that's her job, to provide any care while I am reborn, to catch any tears as I sputter up to the surface, to bear me a second time in peace, not struggle. Give yourself onto me, but I am rising already out of the story, even as I imagine it, hem dripping water into the pool, feet floating above my mother's head. I rise and I scream, "Mommy!" Unable to understand the way the yard shrinks, my mother shrinks, the flamingo pool shrinks, and she watches me rise, gasps, holds her arms to the air and calls out, "Joy! Joy! Joy!" And I stretch my hands to her and I kick at the air, and I believe, and she believes that she will be able to save me from any fall. I also have a silly poem that I wrote to all of you because I love you so much. So bear with me, because there's plenty of seriousness. To the IW cohort of 2021, I love how soft we can be. I love all these squishy frogs hopping into the room, skin still wet from the pond, and dragging little squirrels of paper. Listen, the smacking up down of wet froggy feet on Zoom, and lisping sound of paper, little ink brushes and froggy hands. I love that pain is celebrated. I mean, that sounds wrong, but do you know what I mean? At least it's invited to the party. It was always there anyway, the Siamese twin to your tennis shoes, dragging its feet to the drinks table, looking at the last 2 inches of cheapy red wine called Bloodsucker. Instead, someone brings Pain to the party and we all say, hey, Pain. Hey, see my friend over there? The one tracing his fingers over the knots in the wooden floor? Show him your bicycle scar. Yeah. I even almost love Zoom, where all the empathy collects over chat and voice. I love this sensitivity zone. I love this place where all of us come together and limp around, musical limping chairs. Mysteriously, one person starts to float. The limping becomes flight. Look at her go. Look at them go in her beautiful crooked way. Look at that arc. Look at the steam behind her. Look at those fucking rockets. We're flying. Damn. Zoom heart. Thank you. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Julian Perrino Stoll. Julian Perrino Stoll, pronouns he, him, is a poet living in San Jose, California. His work has been performed at Play on Words and Flash Fiction Forum, has been published in De Anza College's Red Wheelbarrow Student Magazine, where it has won first prize in poetry and is forthcoming in Lantern Review. Take it away, Julian.
Thank you, Joy. This is so wonderful. Thanks to everyone who's come out today. I'll just get into it. I have 3 poems. My mother looks at the sky because love is the white moon, and so he disappears every month only to return and fire his weapon into that fateful sky, piercing new stars into heaven's heavy cloth. Because you pity him, this pomaded Olongapo policeman, the tragic craters in his smile. Because something is happening to you, something new and unexpected, growing like the moon still forming in your belly. Because, you told me, the moon has a face that never lies, because it says nothing, doesn't want anything. Because the water rising all around you is the color of the moon, is the color of ash, because it is full of ash. My mother, my mother, my mother, you look at the sky because in your dreams, you were the moon, and you are not from this place, not dropping out of school, but falling up out of the world. Thank you. The next 2 poems form a pair. They were written on 2 successive nights as the wildfire smoke rolled into San Jose, covering everything just a few weeks ago. A poem of depression. Tonight, I will sweat into my pillow until I wake up underwater. Nights like these, my arms and legs are full of TV static, and I swallow swords made of air, tapping them against my heart. Life is a dull thumping trapped in my skeleton, and I want a cigarette. Loneliness is the last tether I have to love. These jaws of concrete and steel are just the city swallowing me whole. Tonight, someone outside my window will scream themselves to sleep. Tonight, the last stars are spirits humming faintly in their cages. A poem of affirmation. Tonight, you must love yourself if you are to survive. Because tonight, the world is splintering itself apart in your chest, and you must prune the delicate leaves of your heart. Trace the veins back to their source in your mother's voice, that first wind which held you against a velvet sky full of ruin. Dream again that first swirling primordial dream of being and becoming, and remember, because tonight your tears are raindrops finding their way home, and the world is still full of bandages. Thank you. I am honored to introduce Kiana. Kiana Aguila Labra is a Cebuana Tagalog Filipino poet based in San Jose or stolen Ohlone Tamian land. She is the author of 2 collections, Natalie and No Saints, with her 3rd collection, Mohilach, forthcoming September 2021. She is also the founder and editor-in-chief of the literary magazine Marias at Sampaguitas. Thank you.
Thank you, Babaligya Salamat, Julian, and thank you everyone here for sharing space with all of us. I have 3 poems as well. This first one is a list of important memories. I love choosing more than one toy at the 99-cent store in Tracy. I gravitate toward cute stuffed toys or pens or diaries. I love having leftovers from a large meal, fridge bursting at the seam, and what our families promise is love. I watch the sunset and think of ghosts. Who wouldn't be happy with the storm brewing inside my palms, a storm I tend daily? I love the wind as it caresses each windmill and kisses Lula's flowers and the hush of papers from an open book. I love the still between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m., right when my virtual Cebuana class ends because they're based in Melbourne and there's a time difference. Before I even set down my headphones, I know Lulu is sleeping. I step outside to grab my books and journal, and Lulu is snoring. I tiptoe toward the main bedroom, stepping over the creaky floorboard, but never before whispering goodnight. My second poem is titled Fernando, for Romeo Aranya's Labra, after Kim Hai-soon, after Pablo Neruda. 2011. Fernando was where we danced with our heels above the sand. 16-hour flight with jet lag as we licked the 6 a.m. sun. This is where it rises, where he rises. 6 hours before the mysterious Fernando, an hour acquainted with Fernando, your chin raised proudly. I did not understand it then, nor did I care. There was only us and our hands in this big house. Buko juice and lechon and mouths only and jovial activity. I married my toes into this land of his and smiled directly at this sun. 2006. Fernando was my ate's go-to karaoke song. She, 16, too young for ABBA, never been in love, yet she sang heartbroken. She sang polished. She sang as if to say, here we are, my love, how did we make it, Fernando? Bugles and rifles and old men with gray hair flooded my imagination. Fernando, Fernando. I was sure Ate cried the first time she sang Fernando. I didn't know I was clutching my chest until I did. 2018. The same chin once upturned and proud is now drooping. His whiskers are no longer brown. His arms know only chairs from the kitchen to the recliner where he sleeps. I ask him where he's from, Fernando. I beg him to remember the shade and humidity. He is slower to respond. His eyes wide, wanting for rest, but I'm not ready to let go. I plead with him to come back to San Fernando, Cebu. 2021, and he is gone. One hands me a tissue. Another says it's not about what we deserve. But what of Fernando? San Fernando, where there are ferns and the dirt road, where is the car sickness and the white van and linked arms? Where is the orange laughter? Close your eyes, Fernando. Open your eyes, Fernando. I spell Fernando with a finger into palm. There are no saints. I can't remember if I breathed. I whisper Fernando as they lower him into the ground. And my last poem is actually for a fellow cohort member. This is for Dorothy R. Santos. Because you're right. Because there's music in my partner's laugh when I say I'm the bugat sugat. Because my tongues are mixed and my brain is slow to process. Because honesty is born in the vocal cords. Because I think I'm finally growing up delayed queer adolescence when I say wala ko kasabot with no pride, no shame. Because I want to plant the future in dirt rife with determination, with hope. Because when I think of home, I think not of place, but of person. Because the first memory I have with Lola is of Clifford and learning the word utot with my realization and her smile. Because even though I know the energy of those I love is right where I am still afraid of leaving them behind. Because even Lolo forgot his Cebuano. Because the last thing he said to me was, "Magaling kang magsalita ng Tagalog mo." Because sometimes we are given gifts we do not want. Because responsibility is also a curse. Because the last thing I said to him was, "I love you." Because I've learned gratitude should be our first instinct. Because the stitching of community is made with the tail ends of stars. Because even across screens, tayo means we. Because I am also sending you love. Because I am also seeking peace. Thank you all. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Lahanra Tep. Lahanra Tep is a daughter of Cambodian refugees. She is currently pursuing her master's in Asian American Studies at UCLA, where she's working on a collection of short stories about the Cambodian American diaspora. Lahanra enjoys stories and art in all forms. In her free time, you can find her at the movies, enjoying live music, or getting lost in a museum. Go ahead, Lahanra.
Thank you, Kiana, for that beautiful reading. I'll be reading an excerpt from my short fiction piece entitled Romvong, and Romvong means it's a Cambodian folk dance that is a social tradition at celebrations where participants basically dance in circles. Okay. I wanted to wear black, but Ma says it's bad luck to wear black at weddings. I'm not sure who made up these rules, but Ma was lucky I was going at all. Ba passed away a few days ago. We had a funeral to plan, and all Ma could think about was how I looked at our estranged cousin's wedding. The day Ba passed, I was surprised to see Aunt Dara, who's actually my first cousin once removed, if you want to get technical about it, and I do, lingering at Ma's front door. We had just returned from the hospital, where the doctor insisted we could take all the time we need, but was practically zipping Ba into a body bag the moment we turned our heels. This woman in her black bodycon dress, half her face hidden behind bug-eyed Chanel sunglasses, even though the sun had set an hour ago, her hair pulled back in a high bun, not so she could see better, but so you could see better, the overlapping C's adorning both corners of the frames. She stepped forward, and I thought Ma was going to let her have it. Instead, Ma stepped into her arms and let out the shrillest sob I've ever heard. Ma, who never hugs anyone. Ma, who walks around like there's an invisible, impenetrable force field keeping everyone at arm's distance, was all pudge in Aunt Dara's embrace, and it took everything in me not to pry her from those claw-like arms. But I could see that Ma had been holding it in, and the tears had blurred her vision, so that the Aunt Dara she saw now was still the little girl who grew up next door to her in Battambang, one half of the village's feisty teenage duo who stomped through the outdoor market every Saturday, haggling down the prices of watercress and boiled peanuts with the toughest of vendors, and slurping bowl after bowl of noodle soup like it was a religion. The teenager who dragged her to the dance floor every New Year's, going round and round the teenage boys until they forgot themselves in the circles of Rombong. The woman who held the tail of her spike as she entered the room on her wedding day. The woman who dug holes and planted rice next to her at the labor commune, sneaking bites of stolen fruit hidden in the folds of their checkered grama scarves, while communist cadres watched them dig from sunrise to sunset. The woman whose family escaped alongside hers through the dense Cambodian jungle to the refugee camp in Thailand toward the sewing machines and donut shops of America. In her eyes, I could see that Ma had momentarily forgotten the years that followed, how 15 years worth of her sewing money and Ba's gardening money would never go to their dream home, how just as they were contacting realtors, Aunt Dara and her husband came to them about a failing donut shop, Aunt Dara in tears over the business partner who betrayed them, and how Ba and Ma lent their life savings with the simple expectation that she would pay them what she could in monthly installments. Aunt Dara was consistent at first, but the payments became less frequent. Missed months became missed years, and Aunt Dara began avoiding them at parties, having get-togethers without them, and spreading rumors about Ma and Ba and how they were pressuring her to pay in full. And how could she when she has kids to take care of, employees to pay, a business to run? Aren't they family? Can't they be more understanding? And for 5 years, Ba and Ma said nothing. When Ma finally stepped back, she was still shaking, and her chest was convulsing so hard she had to press a palm against it to calm herself down. He was a good man, Neri. I'm so sorry, Aunt Dara finally said after a long silence. He was, wasn't he? Here, Aunt Dara handed her a white envelope. I want to contribute some money. Ma took the envelope because it would be rude not to. That is what Cambodians do. Birthdays, weddings, funerals, the contribution of money is customary, an acknowledgement of the heavy cost of living. For each event, Ma kept a mental tab of contributions, making sure to reciprocate in equal sentiment. The deeper the relationship, the heavier the costs. Thank you. She looked up at Aunt Dara and I could tell she truly meant it. One more thing. Aunt Dara pulled out a red envelope from her Louis Vuitton purse, and I immediately knew what it was. I'd seen the Instagram post a year ago, even liked it. My youngest daughter is getting married this Saturday. You should come. When Aunt Dara left, I helped Ma open both envelopes. In the white envelope was a crisp $100 bill. In the red, a wedding invitation. I almost laughed. In this zero-sum game, the $100 bill would be going right back to Aunt Dara. And that's it for my excerpt. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our next reader, Nurina Faruqi. Nurina Faruqi is a South Asian visual artist and emerging writer from North Carolina. She studied studio art at UNC Chapel Hill and is a VONA alum. Her writing interests include creative nonfiction, poetry, and comics, and she is currently working on her first chapbook around anticipatory grief.
Thank you so much. This first poem is actually taken from an exercise that we did in Anthony Cody's class around the wandering poem. It's called Hydrangeas. We exist on two planes now. You ancestral, me material. I wander back and forth from one tan slab to the next, processing a new reality. My iridescent blues concreted against off-white. The hydrangeas are in full bloom today. Do you see them? Soft velvet cornflower, pink lilac, thorny rose adjacent, turbulent gray above. An ocean of their own, specters of a younger me. If only I'd known then what I know now. Tell me tales of the past, of your youth, my father's and mine. Tell me tales of the future, future visits, future meals, future memories. Next time you visit, we'll finally go to that hill station by Nainital, you say. Next time you visit, we'll finally go to the Atlantic Ocean, I say. This next one is called, I'm going to read one more poem. It's called Cloudburst. The best time to make dua is when it rains, Jamila told me. I understood what she meant. When the sky rumbled in response, a sound from deep within its belly. When the clouds hovered, gray smoky silhouettes of sea creatures in the distance about to burst. I understood what she meant as I surrendered myself to my bedroom floor when my father collapsed 15 miles away. I understood what she meant when Ummi sped down I-98, fists clenched around the steering wheel, muttering a Bismillah under her breath for protection, because like hell was a red light going to get in her way today. My dua seeped out with tears, screamed out to be heard. I will be better, I promise. I will remember you more, I promise. Just please, another chance, one more chance. My heart as full as the clouds, ready to burst into a release, an opening, a release. It is now my pleasure to introduce Pritiko Rajpal. Pritiko Rajpal is a poet and grew up in California's San Joaquin Valley. Her poems can be found in the Lantern Review, Tupelo Quarterly, and the anthology, The World I Leave You, Asian American Poets on Faith and Spirit. Her first book of poems is forthcoming.
Thank you, Nurina, and thank you all for being here. I'm going to read one poem, which I wrote in response to a prompt given to us last month from Devi. It's called Post-Colonial Cha. Post-Colonial Cha. My father says Americans don't know how to boil water. He fills the red teapot. A song falls out of the tap. When he turns on the stove, we wait for the water to speak again, for its anger to rise like a daughter. The kitchen mists over with travel and toil, recipes which are never written. My father tries to teach me his science. Decoction, he says, as he stands above the steam. He came to this country because of a war. Years later, the night's fog with some new war, always boiling. In my life, I have heard so many people tell my father to go back to his country in so many languages. He still arrives home into this country every evening. My father scoops out a spoon of leaves. The British metric system greens through his hands. His chemistry, his own magic, he boils an elixir pressed down into the day. First by the regiment and the Queen's lace, now by the ticking clock and mortgage. We watch the tea leaves spin and spin, humming the names of God. We see no fortune. From the fridge, I take out a box of organic milk. We laugh about the grass-fed cows worshipped under a Midwest American sun. My father pours in the white milk, tosses in a hand of pounded cardamom. We wait for it all to boil over, to froth the day. Finally, he turns off the flame, pours out the smoke and fume into our chipped fine porcelain. He sugars the tannins with his bulk store honey. We sit together, sip the day, one long slurp at a time, against the civilizing, against another day gone. My father says, Americans don't know how to boil water. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Saun. Saun Bell, she, her, is a Black Filipino Visayan writer, organizer, and creator. Her writing and community organizing are deeply rooted in her East Side, Long Beach, working class, Black, Southern, Pentecostal, and rural Philippine immigrant roots. Saun.
Yes, thank you so much, Preeti. Appreciate you. So yeah, I'm gonna read my my flash fiction piece called Big Head that I've been working on for a little while. I hope you enjoy it. May 21st, 1998. Dear Diary, Big Head bit me today. He just slipped out of his cage, and when I tried to snatch his little body, he chomped at my thumb. It didn't hurt much, but my skin did break a little. And when I stretched my thumb back, I saw blood. I hope I don't get rabies or something. Mama always says to never touch the stray animals because they can give you rabies. And before I know it, I'll be frothy at the mouth, hissing with no home to come back to. But wait, can lizards give you rabies? I'm not sure. Solomon says that that's what I get for bringing the lizard to school anyway. He says it's weird and that people know that I'm his sister, that God is going to punish me for keeping the lizard locked up where he doesn't belong. I told him to shut up and that he can't talk to me that way because I'm his elder. And Dad says, when you're older, the younger person always has to respect you unless they tell you to jump off a cliff. May 22nd, Dear Diary, frickin' Miss Gauss called Mama and told her that I brought a lizard to class. Mom put her on speaker and muted her when she needed me to explain what she was saying. Miss Gauss told Mama I tried to sell the lizard, Big Head, for $5. She told Mama about the other lizards too, that one of the lizards, Stupid Big Head, slipped out of his container in class. And she told Mama how one of the kids picked up Big Head and put it on her desk. Yeah. It was so awful, Miss Jackson. It was an awful commotion. Mom muted the phone and dug her knuckle into my forehead. Before I could even swallow the ball in my throat to explain, Mama slipped off her chinela and waved it in my face. Miss Gauss told Mama that she found out from the other kids in the classroom that I exchanged a few lizards for $10 and a Lunchable with Andrew, Kyle, and a few other boys. I mean, I did, but when Mama asked me, I denied it. Girls aren't supposed to play with lizards, she says. I don't play with lizards, I sell them. When it's really hot, the lizards in the backyard hide in Daddy's old cars, the Oldsmobile. You just pop the hood of the car open and there they are, the lizards. They look like tiny alligators. I wonder if the real alligators move that fast. But yeah, Miss Gauss told Mom that she's worried about the things I'm reading at home for my sustained silent reading, SSR homework. If Daddy finds out I skipped to the very end of the Bible, ooh, he'll just be so mad. Oh well. Miss Gauss said lately, I've become more curious about weird and strange things, scary things. She said the boy I sold the lizard to asked me why I was selling the lizards. He told Miss Gauss about how I had a plan to buy a Ouija board from Spencer's and how I got the whole idea from watching the movie with the loser witch girls. Mama looked at me and shook her head, holding her chinela with her pinchy fingers. Anak, are you praying every night? The chinela made me nod yes. May 22nd again, after dinner. Dear diary, that stupid Gaylord is gonna get me in trouble. I can't believe he told Miss Goose about my plan. I hope Mama doesn't tell Dad about the Ouija board. Stupid Solomon came into my room after dinner and said God is sending me a message through Miss Gauss, and that's what I get for reading Revelations when Daddy told us we couldn't. It's a sin, he says. He just kept going on. We're not of age. You're reading weird things about witchcraft and scaring me. Daddy told us one of the 10 commandments was to listen to your parents. And Pia doesn't even come over here anymore because you're a weirdo. Well, I told him Pia can suck it. He told me only boys can say that. Whatever, Solomon, whatever. Solomon is such a Gaylord. Since when is it a sin to read Revelations? Are witchcraft and Revelations really not the same? Solomon is just a scaredy cat. If he snitches, I swear I'll tell Dad about the Harry Potter book Mom got him. So only witches are sinners, but wizards aren't? Anyways, if I save up enough money to get this Ouija board from Spencer's, I can call on my ancestors to send me blessings, some money, so I can buy all the books and little Debbie Swiss rolls and zebra cakes I want, and the little Mexican candies with the strawberry in the middle too. Thanks, y'all. All right, so now I have the pleasure of introducing the really incredible and amazing Tiffany Hung. Tiffany Hung is a Taiwanese American writer and the founder of the Hong Kong-based Spill Stories, an independent publisher run by Asian and Black women that is releasing its 4th book soon titled Powerful Asian Moms. Who doesn't love powerful Asian moms? She enjoys writing creative nonfiction, and she has spent half her life in the States and half her life in Asia. She lives in Los Angeles. Let's give it up for Tiffany in the chat, y'all.
Thank you so much. That piece made me laugh and smile so much. Okay, first of all, today is my dad's birthday. He's turned in, so happy birthday, Dad. Hope you're having a good day. And I'm reading an excerpt from a nonfiction piece called Asian Speakeasy in Miami. The chopsticks in her bun never budged as she repeatedly contorted her body to strike suggestive poses. Her red cheongsam was embroidered with flowers that ended right below her hips. Her black heels rested on a small podium. Behind her, floor-to-ceiling windows exposed a forest of office buildings. The dimly lit lounge still illuminated her lips, which shone bright red as she glared forward, looking bored and confident, gazing at her twin on the opposite side of the lounge. Another white girl with chopsticks in her blonde hair met her gaze, mirroring the same movements. I sat between the dancers along with a room full of other patrons who had reserved a dinner spot at an Asian speakeasy. Our dark wooden chairs rested on a spread of red carpet. It's supposed to be like an opium den, I heard someone say in passing. I was visiting from California to see family, having relocated back to the States after 5 years of living in Hong Kong. My father had just moved from Taiwan the month prior. The concept of a, quote, late night Asian brunch, quote, was confusing, but I had agreed to meet my friend despite my reservations, since she had gone out of her way to make plans. I was desensitized to Asian fusion in Miami, which was mildly offensive, but at least familiar. In general, my expectations for the quality of Asian food in Miami were rock bottom. The first Chinese immigrants to arrive in Miami built the railroads. While there was a subsequent push to create a Chinatown, it never came to fruition. On a prior visit, my sister had taken me to an Asian-inspired restaurant in the burgeoning Arts District with a non-Asian executive chef whose menu boasted Thai creamed spinach. I did not protest. My relationships were far more important than the inauthenticity of the dishes we ate, a trade-off I only started to consider after I moved back to the States. My complicity felt bearable after I ate a crisp Korean fried chicken leg. It was delicious, both to my dismay and relief. But watching these two dancers was too intense, awakening a dormant part of my conscience. I winced and avoided looking at my friend. She had lived in Hong Kong for years like me, but I wasn't sure if we shared a common perspective. After all, Hong Kong's red light district of Wan Chai used to house a lounge named Ophelia, designed by an Australian man named Ashley Sutton. It was also inspired by the aesthetic of an opium den. Before COVID delivered justice and decimated the establishment, it was, quote, home to some of the most sought after and exotic entertainment in Hong Kong, according to a local magazine. It was one of many venues where an expat designer was paid handsomely to build his interpretation of Asia in a space that targeted other expats who came to the city for international experience. Their entertainment act was strikingly similar to Miami's Asian speakeasy. At midnight, a handful of dancers in black cheongsams emerged in a smoky dark room and performed a sultry dance to Chinese opera music. Most retreated into oblivion afterwards. The two remaining dancers climbed onto two shelving units above the bar, their undulating bodies 2 feet above illuminated bottles of premium spirits. They faced each other with glazed over eyes, mirroring each other's lazy movements. Sometimes an arm slowly twirled and reached upwards. Other times, a leg stretched upwards. Their slowness, as if induced by opium, suspended time and captivated a herd of people yearning for drinks to also become slower, their arms reaching out towards the bottles round after round. Silently, I promised myself to stop visiting fake opium dens while avoiding eye contact with my friend. I feared she might be enjoying the dancers. She did not know that my grandfather's father suffered from opium addiction. My grandfather was then raised by his own grandfather, who passed and left him an orphan at the age of 15. Chinese history was personal. I preferred to share these parts of myself without Dua Lipa's disco beats thumping overhead. Retreating further into myself, I went into autopilot mode, maintaining conversation while internally trying to rationalize my attendance at an Asian speakeasy. I thought about the restaurant, which was owned and operated by a Hong Kong conglomerate founded by the British. Their property arm employed over 4,000 employees with headquarters in Hong Kong. Perhaps a minuscule part of my money was flowing back across the Pacific Ocean to support their paychecks. Was my presence contributing to Hong Kong's economy? And then I remembered the leadership team of this conglomerate was mostly white British men whose incomes dwarfed their employees. I went back to the drawing board, envisioning this time reparations via Chinese nationalism. I thought about America's economic reliance on China, evidenced by the billions Chinese investors spent to own American real estate and the $1 trillion of Chinese-owned US treasuries. I thought about how Gen Z had knighted TikTok as their preferred app, a new kind of opium made scalable and just as addictive. I felt smug with revenge, as if my attendance at this lounge was inconsequential. Even if I was sitting in an outdated colonist wet dream, China's indomitable ascension would make none of it matter and could offer me satisfaction, or at least reprieve, a different narrative to endure the evening. Momentarily, I reveled in this interruption of the flow of power, no longer a linear current from the west to the east, but an ocean where waves could whip in both directions, where American exceptionalism floated as meaninglessly as seaweed. When my mother immigrated to the States in 1980, Her choice was simple: China, only beginning to recover from a century of deterioration, or America, a dream. There was only one choice, and she chose America with her soul, reframing her world around a crisp blue passport. The decision cost her friendships, opportunities, and maybe love in an alternate life she could have had as China's middle class rose far away. 40 years later, I should be grateful that there were now two options to whom my allegiance could fall, two ways of seeing the world, one that didn't involve my mother's suffering or my family's indignity. But then I quickly remembered that in my oceanic metaphor, Taiwan and Hong Kong would be like small shrubs that were sometimes brought to the surface and at other times crushed under the pressures of the waves. All versions of colonization and imperialism created casualties, an airtight framework with no escapes. No matter where my allegiance fell, a part of my identity would be sacrificed in the process: Taiwanese, American, and Chinese. Self-preservation in an Asian speakeasy was impossible. I felt trapped when dessert arrived: banana foster cake made Asian with star anise whipped cream. Thank you. I will note that the ending is more positive, but right now we're in like the center of the story. All right, so it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Vanessa E. Vanessa E, she is a third generation Angelino and Chinese American filmmaker and storyteller. She created the documentary feature, The Laundromat, which tackled issues of suicide and depression within the AAPI community and destigmatized discussions of mental health. Her current work spans fiction and nonfiction, television, graphic novels, and documentary, while continuing to focus on the narrative themes of healing from trauma. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany, and thanks for that really intense experience. Seriously. And thank you for everybody who's gone before. All right. So I wrote these two poems separately, but they ended up being kind of companions to each other. So to my collaborators, Chris, Anne, and April, re The Laundromat documentary 10 years on. Sometimes I wish I had not made the film, created a public record of shame, silence, captured my tears, your tears, our pain. But as I sat in the hospital room, listening to the beep of the machines, dimly aware of my stale, sweaty body, watching like a prayer my mom's chest rise and fall, I became possessed by questions I could not answer. Why was my voice stuck in my throat? Why was I a specter floating through my classes? Whose shame and silence was I carrying? That night I wrote and wrote, night nurse shuffles and hallway whispers, the overture for the beginning of my film. I finished the first treatment in one evening, then breathed deeply, over and over, willing that rhythm into my mother's body. But now I see that the film was actually an exorcism. In those moments, I became the priest and the possessed. When the instructor asked us recently to draw a haunted house, all I could think to sketch at first was my own body, inherited anxiety and learned insecurity superimposed like a death mask in the mirror, loneliness wrapped around my body, an impenetrable sable shroud, one foot always dragging as it straddled the hell of conflating should with want. Yet as the priest and the possessed, it contains the seeds of cleansing, the tools to speak, listen, ask, witness. Then the person who needed it most, namely me, you, we, could exercise something bigger than ourselves. So when the instructor asked us recently to draw a haunted house, Chris, all I could think to sketch at first was your body. The twin ghosts of your loved ones wrapped around the narrative of your life. They're absent, present in each birthday, anniversary, promotion, and disappointment. The generational rage of your father hounding all your decisions as a dad. But the shadows made your laugh louder and your smile brighter. your empathy greater, your anger deeper. As priest and possessed, I prayed that the haunting would restore your emotions and make you more present, that their shades would become catalysts, not barriers, context, and not your core. So when the instructor asked us recently to draw a haunted house, and all I could think to sketch at first was your body, your being that held a life that you were not ready to raise, your heart that held so many scars and fears that you tattooed a sigil of protection, a symbol of loss, your face that leaked so many tears in the small hours to someone you weren't sure would hear. As both priest and possessed, I witnessed you create art as vessels for the trauma, that you cherished your ghost and allowed your body to raise more life. So when the instructor asked us recently to draw a haunted house, April, all I could think to sketch up first was your body, limbs lined with the painful reminder of the contract of dreams deferred, the sharp tongue that drew blood because you had turned it on yourself first, the wraiths your parents brought with them that stopped your voice from sharing your deep sorrow for so long. As both the priest and the possessed, I learned the gift of holding space from you, the ancient exorcism ritual of listening and being present for the red rage of poltergeist, the heavy fog of phantasms. Sometimes I wish I had not made the film, created a public record of shame and silence, captured my tears, your tears, our pain. But I have made a home of my haunted house, let light into the dark quarters, invited others in, told unwelcome apparitions that they must leave. They no longer control the story. The film was an exorcism, but our ghosts are still here. We build new structures with them, around them, new room that did not exist at first in our haunted bodies. Infirm imaginations transformed by naming each spirit. In those moments, I choose to live as the priest and the possessed. Second poem, The Sweet of the Nectarine. The sweet of the nectarine sluiced down my throat, making its slow way down to the pit of my stomach, where I store the small acid voices, the ghost-like fingers of criticism pulled at my sleeve. Pay attention, but the nectarine awoke in me the remembrance of true things, grow things, the sun sending out life, the trees sprouting leaves, the leaves synthesizing sugar, the branches bearing fruit, and the fruit to send seeds out into the world to start the cycle again. Then I had found the fruit at its ripest, and the sweet had found me at my most gray-green mindset. Suddenly, the sweet propelled me outside to meet the sun and to hear the dog and see the common sparrow unafraid. And just this once, I let the haunting go quiet as I let the present and its sweet imperfection take precedence. All right, thank you for listening. Let's see. So I have the great and wonderful pleasure of announcing Yamina Abdur-Rahim, who is our last speaker tonight. Yamina Abdur-Rahim is a mixed race Black visual artist and poet from Oakland, California. Her work centers on archiving family history, identity, liberation, and she's working on her first book of poetry. I would also like to give a shout out to Jessica Kim, who is a poetry and producer who is also part of her cohort but won't be reading today. So thank you, everybody.
This poem is titled Marie. On God, on my grandmother's grave, the sea, you see, she loved it too. All girls named a virgin, all girls named a holy feminine unsullied by man, a saint, each girl, until she is not. This is my grandmother, the mother of God. Like Botticelli's Venus, a woman divine and without origin, except the sea, salt brine waves crashing like a cold womb, and maybe to be without origin is to be God herself, each girl exalted only when they give birth to man. My grandmother was raised by God's devoted wives instead of her own mother, who loved man more than the divine. She did not belong to the orphanage where she was left. And maybe this is to be godlike, to be reborn from the dark well of your own imagination. She, born of the celestial realm of the unknown, that gurgling distant place that smothers in cold fear, loving the sea more dearly than land, holding tight to the ocean, falling through the hands of the mothers who raised her like passing waves. Could her aloneness have brought her closer to God? Or having no father but his vague memory brought her closer to him? Or bearing the name of his divine mother made her care for those who should have protected her, and she, like God, abandoned her own creations, and she, like God, we abandoned in our own hearts, and she, like God, lives a tenuous existence and is reborn each day through our faith alone. She, like God, grew to mythic proportions, promised to grant prayers, wishes, and showed up with hands empty. She, that same God that crushed cities under the weight of his rage. That God who fled his own shrine because we left the fruit to rot. And she is that God who cast us out because we begged but did not repent. And could she as God just be too far away? And my prayers instead are swallowed by glacial winds. And she, wholly divine, devours memories whole with glacial waves. Because she is that sea whose oscillating surface is a mirror to man's terror. And when she died, her daughters let her ashes float in the Pacific Ocean, the sea she loved, the ephemeral home, her grave, a bed of salt. Thank you, everyone, for watching my video.
Well, thank you all for listening. We have come to the end of the reading. We would like to make some space for anyone in our audience who might have a question for our IWL 2021 fellows. You can type your questions into the chat box and we'll relay them out to our readers. We got some thank yous coming up, a lot of love coming through. Yeah, if anyone wants to, throw a question out there. Thank you, Zoe. So, that was beautiful and was the food I needed today, definitely. All right. Well, if no one has a question, I guess that means we can wrap this up.
Aren't there 2 birthdays today that we need to talk about?
Are there? Would you like to bring those up?
Hyrule? Yeah, Hyrule.
Hey, no, I'm trying to say that it's not my birthday, but me and Tiffany's. It's both of our dads' birthdays. So today's the birthday of 2 Taiwanese dads in our cohort.
Right.
And I didn't realize it was also your dad's birthday, Tiffany.
Yeah, I didn't know it was your dad's birthday too. So happy birthday to our dad.
I know, happy birthday to our dad, to our Taiwanese dad.
There was one question there, Jason, about if it's possible to read any of the pieces outside of this, so they can read them later. We're going to do the chapbook, right?
Oh, where can our audience read your stuff? Or are any of these poems going to be anywhere?
So we're going to come out with a chapbook next year with all these pieces. We're in the throes of putting together the book. And so when that comes out, I don't know if there's a way we can like follow up with these folks like via email, but
yes, I could send an email to everybody when it's available.
yeah. So it'll be printed by the Asian American Art Museum in San Francisco, and there will be a link where you can buy it online. Am I missing anything, Vanessa? No, okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the chapbook will be coming out early next year. And it's themed post-colonial chapbook. So some of the pieces that you did here today, especially around food, will make it in. It's a wide theme. So yeah, please look forward to it. And we'll probably have a reading for that. So again, if you all want to be a part of that, hopefully just stay in touch.
Okay, is there anything else anyone wants to ask the panelists for tonight? Okay. Well, all right. If folks want to hang out for a little bit, you know, catch up, you're more than welcome to. We can keep the room open for a little while. If again, and if you know, you still had a question, attendees, and just wanted to stick around a little bit, you can too. Okay, thank you all for coming through. Definitely, you know, sign up for the mailing list for ourselves, Kearny Street Workshop and Asian Art Museum. Add us on all of your social medias. We are on your social medias. And if you have questions, you can always reach me at info@kearnystreet.org. Thank you all very much. Love you.